Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking about Outer Range, a new TV show on Prime Video. The first 2 episodes dropped today, and then I'm going to be dropping weekly every single Friday. Before we go into it, please make sure you like this video if you guys have been enjoying it. Please make sure to subscribe if you're new. But let's talk about the first 2 episodes of Outer Range. This will be a spoiler-free review. Give you guys my thoughts on the first 2 episodes, let you know if it's worth checking out. Let's get into it. So Outer Range most notably stars Josh Brolin, who is playing this rancher, and there's a lot of different elements to this show. It seems like he's going to be fighting for his land. There's some dispute with another rancher who wants his land, and that's actually a very interesting part of the story. It's more interesting than I actually thought it would be, as the other rancher is actually played by Will Patton, who everyone knows Will Patton. He's a great actor. And I have a lot of No Country for Old Men vibes for this show. You know, anytime you see Josh Brolin in a cowboy hat, my mind just automatically goes to No Country for Old Men, which is a fantastic movie. But for this show, he plays sort of like the opposite of his character in the last one. Still a very, you know, Josh Brolin. He's a very quiet, sort of grudgy, you know, dark sort of man. You know, like, I don't know if he's like that in real life, but every character he plays, not every character, but most of his character that he plays has that sort of tone to him, right? So for this one, he's this father who recently just has his daughter missing. So his daughter's gone for like 9 months. So that's another cool mystery element to the show as we're trying to figure out like what maybe happened to his daughter. And but the biggest part of the show is that there's this weird mythological, could be supernatural, extraterrestrial, we're not really sure, but it's like this crater on his land. And it's like this smoky black crater, and like it's not like you can't really, if you throw something into it, it just disappears. There's not really like a bottom to it as far as we know. So there's a lot going on here. I mean, we have some grounded stuff, like I said, the dispute over the land, dealing with the sadness of a daughter. In the second episode, there's something really crazy that happens, and it sort of flips the whole show on its head. I'm not going to spoil this. It's a spoiler-free review, but it adds a whole nother, you know, tone to the show that adds a lot more suspense. I will say Josh Brolin's pretty great right from the start. In the second episode, he does have some more scenes where he's able to show his acting range a little bit more. So I did like that. But right from the get-go of the show, I just liked how there was like this heavy sense of sadness. As we know from the beginning that the daughter is missing. That's not something that happens in the show. It happens off screen. You know, at least in the first 2 episodes, we don't know what happened to the daughter. But already like that image of having a daughter gone missing, that's older, she's not like a little girl or anything like that, like what could have happened to her, it's already a very interesting element right from the start. I will also say on a technical level, it looks great. I mean, the cinematography is very well done. The scenery of like this massive land, like a beautiful sky, just makes it feel more immersive to see that, like the scope of the land. Makes it feel a lot more realistic, and the show does that well. I would say the cast is really good. Even besides Josh Brolin and Will Patton, I mean, you have Tom Pelphrey in there. Anyone who recognizes him from maybe Ozark, he sort of plays the same sort of character as Ozark in this show. He's like that troubled brother character who messes up and everyone else needs to clean up his mess. That's sort of like the same thing that happens in this show, but he plays that character very well in Ozark, so I'm down to see it again in this show. And we have Imogen Poots, who was also in Vivarium recently, and a couple other things, but she does good. And then Lily Taylor as well plays Josh Brolin's wife. You guys may recognize her as the mom from The Conjuring. It's one of my favorite horror movies. But, I mean, the cast is recognizable. And I will say that if you're someone that likes the, you know, like those sad boy westerns, you know, like I said, this isn't like a Clint Eastwood western. This is like a modern sort of western thing. You know how cowboys are always like, you know, like that sad, quiet type, you know, like I said, like that grudgy. If you like that sort of like lonely man sort of, you know, hard skin sort of character, and you like following, you know, what kind of stories that they have to tell, I would say definitely check this out because Josh Brolin plays that character to a T. He does a very good job at that. But the one main interest, like I said, with this show for me is like that supernatural crater thing. It's such a weird thing to put in this show, and I know that for me personally, I hate comparing shows to other shows. I think every show should be looked at on its own separate thing. It shouldn't be compared to like another show. But I did get Invasion vibes from this show. Anyone that's seen Invasion on Apple TV, I know a lot of my followers have come to me from Invasion because, as you know, like, I don't really like that show. But it's funny, like when Josh Brolin finds this giant crater, I couldn't help but think of Invasion because, you know, it's a cowboy hat guy. Like if you look at this picture of Sam Neill finding a crater in Invasion, I just got the same vibes with Josh Brolin in the same sort of hat finding another crater. But the thing that this show does better than Invasion already is the characters are a lot better. The story's a lot better. Even if the show isn't focusing on the creator, which it rarely does, which adds this more like mythological feel to like the creator because we don't get too much time with it. The other stories, the sub stories are so good. You know, like I said, that scene that happens at the bar that changes the whole show. There's so much interest in that. You know, like the dispute over the land, that's already interesting. The missing daughter, that's already interesting. And the characters are good too. Like Josh Brolin, his wife, Will Patton, they all sort of add this different. They just bring something to the table, each and every single one of them. Where I feel like Invasion, there's no character I get behind. I didn't care about any of their stories. There wasn't enough time to spend with each character. Where this show does it a lot differently. And when I read the synopsis for this show, I thought it was gonna be straight up aliens. You know, like the way that it makes it sound like this crater thing. You know, usually that's a sense of aliens, right? But it's weird because this show talks about like Greek mythology. Like they talk about Kronos, and I love Greek mythology. I grew up reading like the Percy Jackson series. And then I just dived into researching more about the Titans and the Greek gods. And so as a kid growing up, I used to always find that mythology like the most interesting. So the fact that this show it might be playing into that, I don't know how far they're gonna go with that. But in both episodes, they reference Kronos the Titan, like how he had like this spear that he was gonna put a hole and that would connect worlds. It gets super into that sort of thing, and I love that. So for me personally, I love all these different sort of elements. Like I said, the grounded stuff that's realistic, but then also like there could be like this weird thing at play here. And so I will say the ending of the first episode is a crazy WTF ending. It literally had me shocked. I was blown away by that first episode. And so before I give you guys my rating for both episodes, I will say that at some parts, towards the end of the back of this first episode and the beginning of the second episode, it was a little bit too dark. Now I watched during the day, so maybe that's my own personal thing. I had the sun coming in, but I did notice a little bit too dark at times. I don't usually like that. But then the second episode was really good as well, and the ending of the second episode was actually more mind blowing than the ending of the first episode. The ending of the second episode had me on my feet. It had my jaw dropped. I was speechless. I haven't felt that way about a show like that much, like in terms of like shock value, in a very long time. So my combined rating for the first two episodes of both shows is actually a 4.3 out of 5, which is super high for me. The first episode I give a 4.4. Second episode I give a 4.2. Meet smack in the middle. I would say right now the show is at like a 4.3 range, which, if you guys have been watching my channel, I don't usually like, especially in the beginning episodes, I don't usually give out like over 4-point ratings just because I think a show should make it deserve that over the 4, and it usually takes time. But I think the show does a great job of just setting up these characters right from the get-go, already adding so much background, like skipping the scenes of having the daughter disappear and already have us thrown into it to where we have to sort of figure out like what could have happened to her. Like we don't even know this character yet. We haven't even been introduced, or I don't even think really shown her face besides maybe like a photo. Like all of that just adds different layers for the audience to sort of eat into, and even we can make a lot of theories about this. This is definitely gonna be a show I think I cover every single week. I definitely recommend checking it out for any sort of fan. But for like the sci-fi fans, for like the Western fans, I'd say this is definitely something that'd be cool into. But yeah, I mean, just with the cast, the performances, I think could maybe get even some recognition. Maybe Josh Brolin next year during the award seasons. But it's a show that has a lot of big moments. It's paced really well. It looks really well. And I think it's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, the shock value at the end of those first two episodes those alone are just worth watching it. So I definitely recommend checking it out if you guys haven't already. Let me know down below what you guys have thought of the first episode. If you've seen it already, if you guys plan on checking it out, let me know down below. But if you've watched it this far, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like the video. Please make sure to subscribe if you are new. That is it. I will see you all in the next video. Have a great rest of the day.